Tonight, 5G network to roll out in the country as federal government approves new policy. Disagreement over VAT collection rages between the Rivers State government and the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, appeals judgment. And Department of State Services files terrorist charges against Sunday Igboho's aides just as they institute a rights enforcement suit against the DSS. And in Guinea, it's freedom for 80 prisoners as new military leaders set them free. Plus, international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, Naira drops to 535 against the dollar at the parallel foreign exchange market despite the recent increase in Nigeria's external reserves.
On sports news tonight, Britain's Emma Raducanu becomes the first qualifier in US Open history to reach the last four with another outstanding display against the reigning Olympic champion Belinda Bencic.
And from the nation's capital, the police force parades alleged killers of father of former Plateau State Governor Joshua Dariye.
We begin tonight from Abuja, where the federal government has introduced a policy on the 5G network in the country. This is one of the outcome of today's Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Pantami, who announced the approval of the new policy, also clarified the recent shutdown of telecommunications activities in Zamfara State, explaining that the action is at the instance of security agencies. The Minister also declined to disclose if the same measure would extend to other states affected by banditry, especially in the northwest zone. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mizuke, reports.
It's exactly 1 week since President Muhammadu Buhari chaired the Federal Executive Council meeting and, in a rare move, sacked 2 of his cabinet members. This meeting, which has the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, attending virtually, saw the approval of a national policy on the 5th generation network. Apprehensions raised on social media over the inimical effects of the 5G technology is debunked at this briefing by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy.
There was a complaint from citizens about relationship between 5G and COVID-19. It has not been proven to be any harmful to our health. Most importantly, even its frequency and radiation is even lower than that of 4G and even lower than the televisions and microwave we have at home. Even the deployment is in phases. We can only start with major cities in Nigeria where there is need of very high quality broadband. And we do hope that a plan will come up immediately that will show that from now to 2025, we will be able to ensure that significant towns and cities in the country will also benefit from 5G.
By the same token, mobile telephone networks were shut down in Zamfara State after authorities ordered a telecoms blackout to aid the armed forces tackle banditry in the area.
I am aware of the shutting down, but the request is not from us, but rather the request is from the security institutions in which they ask for that as part of their strategy. So we agree to reduce the growth of our sector relatively in order to support the security, like NIN registration and SIM. We know, but because of security reasons, we have to accept that. And this shutdown will definitely affect our sector economically.
Good work.
Now, one thing is clear. The president is aspiring to advance operations within the sectors. The 1.2 billion emergency water supply scheme in Nasarawa State and the nearly 500 million power supply approval, among several others, the president is hoping will change the narrative in the nation's infrastructure. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Federal Executive Council approved 64 million naira for the procurement of 40 sets of 330 kV isolators for the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Addressing State House correspondents, the newly appointed Minister of Power, Mr. Abubakar Aliyu, adds that the Council approved the procurement of one set of 132 kV chrome temporary circuit breakers, 16 sets of 33 kV ABB circuit breakers, and 25 sets of 33 kV compound units. Lightning arresters for the transmission company as well. Meanwhile, 500 million naira was also approved by the council as the consultancy fee for the design of the construction of the second runway for the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. The Senior Special Assistant on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, equally disclosed that the council ratified the policy on food and nutrition for the country, hinting of a budget line for ministries, departments and agencies. Away from the Federal Executive Council meeting, there was some disagreement between the Auditor General of the Federation and the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts over some figures contained in the budget report of the Auditor General of the Federation. The lawmakers who were on an oversight visit had requested for certain documents from the Auditor General, who insisted that he was not informed that the visit was for an audit and therefore was unprepared. The committee is questioning the books of the Auditor General and wondering who audits the office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has more.
Members of the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts arrived at the Audit House, Abuja, on an oversight visit. The committee raises concerns over various unsubstantiated expenditures as presented by the Auditor General.
You said welfare package. 2019 you said 12 million. And I begin to wonder how in 2020 the welfare package jumped to 77 million.
Which office is saddled with the responsibility of checkmating? Yes, that's it. Yes, no. This is the first time we are coming here. We are not auditing. We are not auditing any of the expenses or the expenditures. What I'm saying, we are just oversighting.
The committee insists on being availed every document to back the claims of the Auditor General, as both parties disagree on the auditing of Nigerian foreign missions.
International travel and transport, audit of foreign missions, consular offices, and 20 defense attaches. 20, and no single payment voucher to prove that somebody attended before this consular committee, Mr. Chairman.
Who are those who travel to all these foreign nations? The 20 countries you went to. Which countries? Who went? How much was paid? Who was paid to?
They will tell you the countries they have traveled to. They are here. That is not how this is. You are judging your own.
Auditor General.
I'm an accounting officer here, not me.
The Auditor General appears unhappy as he reiterates that he was unprepared for the auditing process of the committee.
This is oversight. If it is oversight, there is no way I would have adequately prepared for the questions you come here to ask. So if it is evidence you want, constitute an audit.
The Deputy Chairman of the committee pleads with his colleagues to allow more time for the Auditor General to make the needed documents available, but the committee disagrees, insisting that the request must come from the Auditor General.
Asking that, look, we cannot produce this.
When the dust settles, the Auditor General makes a suggestion to ease the auditing process.
What you people can help us is to put a law in place. Who will audit the Auditor General? And when that is done, what is the volume of our transaction here that we can put together in less than 2 months?
The Office of the Auditor General is the only agency which the Committee on Public Accounts is empowered by law to oversight. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And to all the stories, appropriation of public funds should respect the provisions of the Constitution because it's about the country's commonwealth. That's the submission of Governor Nyesom Wike at an interactive session with corporate organizations in Port Harcourt, the state capital. He also decries what he considers the inequitable tax regime by the federal government, which for him positions the subnationals as subjugates rather than a tier of government.
Jurisprudence, once the law is enacted.
Across the banquet hall of Government House Port Harcourt are foreign and local players in the corporate world doing business in Rivers State as the government prepares for the implementation of the state's tax law, especially the collection of value-added tax, VAT.
If I buy from Lagos, for example, that's about to enact a law.
There has been a dramatic twist in recent time on the administration of taxes in Nigeria following the judgment by a federal high court in Port Harcourt for the Rivers State government to collect VAT and other related taxes. To ensure the smooth enforcement of the judgment, this interactive session is at the instance of Governor Nyesom Wike.
Your Excellency have gathered us this morning for us to interact. As God says, come, let us reason together. He has asked us to come to reason together for the purpose of the value-added tax issues.
Governor Wike says his decision to challenge the collection of VAT by the federal government is not political, but uphold the provisions of the Constitution. And to justify his action, he reels out tax collected in some states, juxtaposing it with what was distributed from the Federation account, amongst other highlights.
I sit here, have headache, thinking of what to do. Some people are sleeping in their houses, staying in Abuja every day. Then I award contracts. You take my own, you say we are collecting VAT to go and share. I'm not even talking about the ones that we have not awarded. The ones this is Rivers State government awarding 200 billion naira job. Somebody somewhere sits in his office and said collect 7.5. Then distribute it to those states that have not awarded contracts. And you say that is equitable? That is justice?
Determined to ensure the implementation of the state tax laws, Governor Wike warns of consequences for defaulting companies. And to provide clarity, the governor and the state attorney general take turn to respond to questions raised by the stakeholders.
When is this state law applicable? This September? And then, is there a clause? I'm glad that we'll be having the state law. Is there a clause that kind of reduces the rate?
Of course, you know, in constitutional jurisprudence, once the law is enacted, it takes effect immediately, unless otherwise provided. There is no provision here that sets a commencement date other than the date the law was assented to by the governor. So that law takes effect from the date it was assented to. So we have the law in place. As for its percentage, that is clearly provided for in Section 4, rate of tax. The tax shall be computed at the rate of 7.5%.
While the Rivers State government is hoping to increase its revenue base, the business community is requesting for regular interaction and concession to achieve a better business environment.
To make sure our people are
Meanwhile, the Federal Inland Revenue Service says it has appealed the judgment of the Federal High Court in Rivers State, which held that the agency does not have the right to collect tax in the state. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the group leads special task operations at the FIRS and says that it is the exclusive right of the Federal Inland Revenue Service to collect all value-added tax in the country. He explains that the law mandating the FIRS to collect all value-added tax seeks to protect businesses from multiple VAT.
Officials of the Federal Inland Revenue Service briefed the media on their operations. However, chairman of the service is not among the officials given the updates. According to the service, value-added tax is shared among the three tiers of government, with the federal government receiving 15%, states share 50%, while local government areas collect 35%. The agency insists that they have the legal backing to collect the VAT.
VAT cannot work at subnational level. And there is no country in the world where VAT works at subnational level. And the reason is because VAT depends on the input-output mechanism. because there is a single tax authority handling VAT, it is the same authority that received the VAT in Osun State that will receive the additional VAT payable in Sokoto State. And so it is easy to work out the input-output mechanism, and there is no issue of the business person being changed. There's no issue of consumers having to pay VAT more than once.
This briefing comes a few days after a federal high court barred the agency from collecting VAT in Rivers State. However, the agency plans to seek further redress.
I can confirm to you that FRS indeed had approached the appellate court to review the judgment at the lower court, at the Federal Court of Appeal in Rivers. And I think I'll just leave it at that. So be assured that FRS has filed an appeal, and that one is in process, and that is why we are not able to speak.
The service also dismisses reports about plans to tax social media in the country.
In part two, after the break, People's Democratic Party alleges tampering in local government election, just as Kaduna State Governor praises victory of the APC in southern Kaduna polls. Please join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder about top stories. 5G network to roll out in the country as federal government approves new policy. Disagreement over VAT collection rages between Rivers State government and the Federal Inland Revenue Service as FIRS appeals judgment. Department of State Services files terrorist charges against Sunday Igboho's aides just as they institute a rights enforcement suit against the DSS. And in Guinea, it's freedom for 80 prisoners as new military leaders set them free. And two stories in now. Governor Nasser El-Rufai of Kaduna State has commended his party, the All Progressives Congress, for its resounding victory in the just concluded local government election, especially in the southern part of the state, where it won 4 out of the 7 local government areas where results have been declared so far. The governor, who describes APC's victory in southern Kaduna as a referendum on good governance and a significant step in advancing political consensus and overcoming division in the state, also says that the APC's victory has expanded the party's footprint.
As an elected governor, I welcome the successful impact on deepening democracy of the policy decision that we took to adopt electronic voting technology. It is our hope that elected leaders at the local level will use their democratic mandates to advance the reforms we have introduced in local government administration in the interest of our people. We welcome the results in the Kaduna South Senatorial District as a significant step in advancing political consensus in our state and overcoming division. We are most grateful to the people of the Kaduna South Senatorial District, whose votes have helped expand the APC's footprint in the area. This emphatic statement at the ballot box has shattered the unhelpful myth that any part of our state is an impregnable stronghold of any political party. It has removed the baseless stereotyping of certain parties as ethnic bastions and religious vehicles. I call on all leaders and citizens in our state to cherish this moment and make it the beginning of an enduring rapprochement. I say to every part of Kaduna State that we can achieve much together if we put our minds and hearts to it. And we hope that the newly elected officials will run these councils in an inspiring new way. We have sadly noted that those political forces that do not want free and fair elections try to sabotage the process in some parts of the state. I promise the people of Kaduna State that we will investigate and prosecute those indicted vigorously.
Meanwhile, the state opposition party does not agree with Governor El-Rufai on the conduct of the election. Earlier, the People's Democratic Party had alleged that the voting machines were tampered with by agents of the ruling All Progressives Congress in some local government areas.
Let me draw his attention to the fact that the EOs at all the local governments where elections were conducted, they suddenly changed the names of the officers, the polling clerks that were trained with public funds preparatory for a very good exercise. But they were changed at the dying minute, and people who were brought to man the machines were nothing but political cronies of the APC and the government. And therefore, the machines could not perform because many of them who were brought in had never seen the machine nor operated them, not to talk of them being in a position to be able to operate the machine successfully. So that's one thing that I call on him to put up an investigation to really find out what led to that situation and who are responsible for that.
Well, staying in Kaduna State, news just in, no fewer than 23 people have been abducted by bandits suspected to be kidnappers who attacked Ongwan Maje and Ongwan Laka villages in Chukun local government area of the state. The bandits, we understand, also killed a police officer during the attack, which occurred at the early hours. They were said to have stormed the two villages in their large numbers in the early hours of today, opened fire on the innocent residents who were still sleeping at the time. The gunmen, according to locals, first attacked Ongwan Maje, where they abducted 16 persons, of which majority of them are women and children. And they later proceeded to Ongwan Laka community, where they killed a mobile police officer, one Joshua Marcus, who came to visit his family from River State Command, where he is serving presently, after which they abducted 7 persons, including the wife and daughter of the deceased. And back to politics, governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, have been in a closed-door meeting ahead of the party's National Executive Committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow. The meeting, which started at about 4 p.m. at the Akwa Ibom Governor's Lodge in Abuja, has now entered its 6th hour. The meeting, which has 12 out of the 13 PDP governors in attendance, also has some former governors and lawmakers attending. A statement from the Director General of the PDP Governors Forum on Tuesday stated that today's meeting will discuss matters affecting the party. The PDP has recently been overwhelmed by court orders restraining the national chairman, Mr. Uche Secondus, from acting on behalf of the party, a development which made the party's National Working Committee to fix a national convention for October. The Department of State Services has filed terrorism charges against Amudat Babatunde, a female blogger who did a Facebook live chat around 2 a.m. on July the 1st, 2021, when the DSS, in a joint operation with sister agencies, raided the Badun residence of Yoruba Nation agitator Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho. Babatunde and Noah Oyetunji are 2 of the 12 detained aides of the activists yet to be released by the DSS, despite a federal high court in Abuja, which granted them bail. Justice Obiora Egwatu of the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja had on August the 4th granted bail to 12 detainees, but the DSS freed 10 of them last week and held back the blogger and Oyetunji after over 60 days in detention following their arrest since the 1st of July. And the 12 associates of pro-Yoruba agitator Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho, they have instituted a rights enforcement suit against the Department of State Services for being paraded on the media as common criminals. The suit by Igboho's associates seek a declaration of court that their detention beyond 48 hours and their media parade without a court conviction constituted a breach of their fundamental rights. All 12 applicants are also seeking an order of perpetual injunction restraining the DSS from interfering with their personal liberty and freedom of expression. They also prayed for an order granting the sum of 100 million naira for aggravated and exemplary damages against the DSS for what they term serious breach of their constitutional rights. However, at the court proceedings, the DSS lawyer told Justice Obiora Egwatu that his case file was stolen from a member of the legal team who was meant to bring it to court on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the annual recess of the High Court now drawing to a close, Justice Egwatu ruled that the file of the fundamental rights suit before the court be returned to the registry for reassignment to the regular court. And to more stories, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has seized a total of 451,807 tablets of amphetamine weighing 74.12 kilograms. According to the chairman of the NDLEA, the shipment has been on the radar of the agency through collaborative efforts of international partners who have kept an eye on the movements of the cargo across 3 countries, stuffed in marble polishing machines known as sanders, prior to arrival at the Lagos port in Apapa. When the news at 10 returns, Paul Darius killers confessed as police parade suspects in Abuja. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's now go over to our Abuja studios where Terry Kumi has some more stories. Hello, Terry.
Well, hello, Millicent. The suspected killers of Pa Defwan Dariye, the father of former Plateau State Governor Senator Joshua Dariye, have confessed to kidnapping and murdering him after they were paid a 10 million naira ransom by his family. Speaking during the parade of suspects at the force headquarters in Abuja, 8 suspects confessed to collecting their share of the 10 million naira ransom. They claim they were recruited by one Jethro Nguso, also known as Baba Meituo, who justified the kidnapping as a retribution for what he described as the years of poor leadership by his son, the former governor of Plateau State. Our correspondent Kayla Megwa tells us more.
Son, so that is what I do.
These 8 men were arrested in connection with the 2020 suspected kidnap and alleged murder of Pa Defwan Dariye, the father of the former governor of Plateau State, Senator Joshua Dariye. They were allegedly led by this man, Jethro Nguso, also known as Baba Meituo.
The reason he gave to me that his son, Joshua, was one time governor for 8 years, and secondly, was one time senator for 8 years. Then thirdly, he wants us, which he look around the community, the youth are unemployed. So we should kidnap him so that we got a ransom.
They claim his death was an accident. Pa Dariye's son says the death of his father was a tragedy, but the confession by Jethro here has given the family some closure.
The whole people, the whole villages has been saying that we frame him with the police, that he cannot do this. But thank God today, he confessed with his mouth that this is what he has done.
They are still suspects, even though they've made all these confessions at today's parading. However, the next phase will be to take them to court, establish these cases, and ensure that justice is served in each of these cases. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
In Katsina State, the police have arrested at least 29 suspects in connection with banditry, cattle rustling, as well as kidnapping. According to the spokesman of the Katsina State Command, 17 of the suspects were arrested for violating the security containment order recently signed by Governor Aminu Masari. He adds that 3 suspected bandits and informants were also arrested between Katsina and Zamfara border while conveying 80 assorted domestic animals to Abuja. All the suspects were paraded at the command headquarters in Katsina. In the meantime, the Katsina Area Command of the Nigeria Customs Service says any of its officers found culpable in Tuesday's shooting at the convoy of the State Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Alhaji Umar Yeo Gwaju, will face charges. The acting controller of the command, DC Dalha Wada Chedi, disclosed this while briefing journalists at the recent achievements recorded by the command in its anti-smuggling fight. He explains that the command has already inaugurated a committee to investigate the incident. The Kaduna state government says it has so far attracted over $2.6 billion of local and foreign investments to the state through its annual Economic and Investment Summit, which commenced in 2016. It says this is in spite of the security challenges confronting Kaduna and other parts of the Northwest Zone ahead of the 6th edition of the summit holding later in the month. The state government says it intends to consolidate on the successes recorded so far to attract more investors into the state. The Executive Secretary of the State Investment Promotion Agency, Kadipa Uma Aboki, who disclosed this at a pre-event press conference, says the 6th edition of the summit will hold from September 23 to 24 this year, with a theme towards a sustainable knowledge-based economy. Aboki says this year's economic summit will again showcase and promote Kaduna State to domestic and international investors as a major investment destination in Africa, including tourist attractions across the state.
Between 2016 and now, we have attracted investments in actual investments and pledges of about $2.8 billion. And we're still counting. Some of these investments are live. People are seeing them already. There's so much economic activities that have happened around these investments. Olam is probably one of the major investments that we had. We have the African Natural Steel, which is the single largest investment, foreign direct investment in sub-Saharan Africa, also in Nigeria. And we have a lot of the other domestic investments that have also happened. Barbados Fertilizer is live and is working. We have the Ama Pharmaceuticals who are doing fluids for the hospitals, which is also a rare one for Kaduna. So we're really happy with the investments that we have brought. CardInvest 6.0 hopes to showcase Kaduna once more as the investment destination of choice in Nigeria and across Africa. We have remained the #1 state to do business in. We have eased the ease of doing business activities in Kaduna State. Most of our agencies are automated, so it is simple for you from the comfort of your homes to apply for land, get your planning permits, get your environmental impact assessments, do your tax registration without really having to visit any of the offices.
The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board has signed a power purchase agreement with the Bayelsa State Government to activate the uninterrupted supply of power to the Bayelsa State Government House and other critical government infrastructure in the state. Governor of Bayelsa State, Doye Diri, says this project is a call on other investors to come on board.
It's a gathering of top officials of the Bayelsa State Government and the Nigeria Content Development and Monitoring Board, including other dignitaries, at the conference room of the Bayelsa State Government House in Yenagua. The Executive Secretary of the NCDMB, Simbi Wabote, takes his seat along with his team to perform a ceremony, the signing of a power purchase agreement with the Bayelsa State Government to activate the state's power supply for residents and other critical government infrastructure. He speaks on the completion of the 17-story content tower and other areas of interest.
We have completed the Nigerian content tower and this 10 megawatts power plant, both of which are now operational and are creating employment opportunities for Bayelsa. These challenges range.
Bayelsa State Governor Doye Diri calls on other investors to partner with the state.
May I therefore use this opportunity to call on private investors to explore and use the abundance of natural resources in terms of oil, gas, wind, and hydro energy. Our state government is prepared to partner in terms of the public-private partnership to ensure that Bayelsa State is well lit up.
Apart from the completion of the content tower and the 10 megawatts gas plant to serve the state government, Wabote also highlights other projects by the NCDMB.
The development of the 25 hectares oil and gas industrial park at Emeya 1 in Ogbea local government area in Bayelsa State. We commend sincerely the cooperation with all the agencies of the state government regarding the construction activities. The project is scheduled for completion by Q4 next year.
And finally, the signing agreement is performed. All is now set for the agreement signed to be put into practice for the benefit of the Bayelsa State Government and the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board.
And that's all from the Federal Capital Territory. Let's go back to Lagos now, where Teniola Shoboali is standing by with business news.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's currency, the naira, has hit a new all-time low of 535 against the dollar at the widely popular but unofficial parallel segment of the foreign exchange market after dropping by 0.6% today. At the same time, the local currency also fell by 0.2% to 411 naira 50 kobo against a single dollar at the investors and exporters window of the forex market, according to latest data from the FMDQ exchange. This comes as latest data by the central bank shows that the country's foreign exchange reserves increased by 2.77% to $34.49 billion as at September the 6th, up from a previous level of $33.56 billion. Meanwhile, the CBN says despite the drop recorded in the value of the naira, it expects the local currency to adjust based on demand and expressed that there would be a convergence of exchange rates. Now, the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, says the Lagos State generates over 500 billion naira annually as revenue from value-added tax. He made this known today in Alausa at the presentation of the State Value-Added Tax Bill 2021 during a stakeholders meeting organized by the House of Assembly's Committee on Finance. The Speaker mentioned that Lagos State will be contributing about 55% of 2.4 trillion naira total VAT collectibles projected by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Meanwhile, the State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice says the state government is determined to execute judgments granting states the power to collect value-added tax. Now over to the stock market, where the bear remains in control for a third consecutive day. Layo Adegoke tells us more.
Thanks a lot for joining us on the Stock Market Report. There's still no respite for the equities market as the impact of profit-taking knocks off more than 24 billion naira from the total value of listed equities today. While the market's main index ended midweek trading session lower by 0.12% after investors extended sell pressure across 4 key sectors of the NGX, particularly the banking counter, while the oil and gas sector remains positive with a 0.55% increase. Take a look at the activity chart. Volume of shares traded today was lower by 0.53%, but the value of equities transactions rose by 11.55%, valued at 3.2 billion naira in over 4,000 deals. Regency Alliance Insurance led 14 other gainers, up by 8.51%, while FBN Holdings is the major volume driver for the day. We have 2 more trading sessions. We'll see if the bull can make a return this week. Well, that's it on the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Thanks a lot. At 10.
Thank you, Tani. Still ahead on the news at 10, Guinea's new military leaders release 80 prisoners as they consolidate power after Sunday's coup, plus other international news and around the world in 5. Join us again. And Guinea's coup leaders have released at least 80 political prisoners detained under ousted President Alpha Condé. About 400 people have been imprisoned during protests against Condé's third-term plan last year. Amongst them is Umar Sylla, who went on hunger strike last December. Saman Pusi has more in international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Anti-Taliban forces in Afghanistan have asked the international community not to recognise the new government announced by the extremist Islamist group. The Taliban has announced an all-male caretaker government, including a man under the United Nations sanctions as Prime Minister and another on a United States terrorist list as Interior Minister. Meanwhile, business is booming for weapons dealers in Afghanistan's Kandahar province, with one trader claiming that he is selling goods to the Taliban. A trial of unprecedented scale has started in France under high security over the November 2015 attacks in Paris that were the deadliest ever in the country. Some 130 people were killed and hundreds wounded when gunmen with suicide vests attacked 6 bars and restaurants, the Bataclan concert hall and a sports stadium. Nearly 6 years of investigations conducted in 19 countries have resulted in a mountain of evidence. The aim of the trial is not just to establish the guilt or innocence of the 20 accused, it is also to document the origins, planning and execution of the attack. At least 17 patients have been killed after heavy rainfall caused flooding at a hospital in Mexico's central Hidalgo state. Officials said that a river burst its banks and water then cut the power supply at the hospital in the town of Tula. Some of the victims were COVID-19 patients who were being treated with oxygen therapy. Meanwhile, a powerful earthquake has struck southwestern Mexico. Civil protection authorities said the quake, measured at a magnitude of 7.4, sent residents and tourists spilling into the streets from homes and hotels. Several members of a pro-democracy Hong Kong organisation have been arrested after their group was accused of working as a foreign agent. The Hong Kong Alliance is known for organising the city's famed annual vigil for victims of the deadly 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown. The arrests were made under the National Security Law, which has a maximum sentence of life imprisonment. The National Security Department said that investigations were ongoing and did not rule out any further arrests. More than 1,000 people have marched in El Salvador's capital to protest against the adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender. The protesters burned a tyre and set off fireworks in front of the Supreme Court building as the government deployed heavily militarised police to the site of the protests. Many Salvadorans are wary of the volatility of the cryptocurrency, which can shed hundreds of dollars in value in a day. A gas explosion in a 9-storey block of flats in a city near the Russian capital has killed 2 people and damaged several apartments. Big holes in the outer walls of the building can be seen in the video footage, with debris scattered on the ground. Rescue workers found that walls collapsed on 3 of the building's floors. A total of 173 residents have been evacuated, and 5 of them were injured by the explosion. 41 prisoners have died after a fire swept through an overcrowded jail near Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. Police believe the fire at the prison may have been caused by an electrical fault, as the electrical wiring had not been upgraded since the prison was built in 1972. There were 122 inmates staying in the worst affected Block C, far more than the 40-person capacity. Somalia's president has picked a new spy chief days after the Prime Minister appointed a different person for the job. The country's 2 most powerful leaders are locked in a deepening standoff. The open row between President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed and Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble marks an escalation of months of tensions between them in a country already riven by attacks and rivalries. And finally, a teen pilot who is seeking to break the world record as the youngest woman to fly solo around the world has touched down in Costa Rica. 19-year-old pilot Zara Rutherford took off from an airport in western Belgium on August the 18th in the world's fastest microlight aircraft.
Flying into Costa Rica was amazing. It's a really beautiful country. It's a shame I can't stay longer. I wish I could.
The British-Belgian flyer hopes her voyage will encourage more girls and women to study and work in science fields and spark girls' interest in aviation. The route will take about 3 months with stops in 52 different countries. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. And now, news just in. The PDP governors' meeting, which we had earlier reported on, has just ended, with the governors agreeing to work with its candidate in the forthcoming Anambra State governorship election in November. They also say they await the National Executive Council meeting tomorrow to take further decisions on the planned October convention.
Time now for sports news. British 18-year-old sensation Emma Raducanu has become the first qualifier to reach the US Open women's semi-finals by defeating Tokyo Olympic champion Belinda Bencic 6-3, 6-4 earlier today. World number 150 Raducanu, only the fourth qualifier to reach a Grand Slam semis, made the Swiss 11 seed the highest-rated victim of her young career in making history on the New York hard courts. And the NFF says it has deferred to FIFA's own record of 98 caps for Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa following the nullification of 2 of the matches he played, in which should have made his tally become 100. FIFA on Tuesday said that Musa's appearances in the 3-0 defeat of Togo in the friendly match in Paris in June 2017 and the FIFA World Cup Russia 2018 qualifier against Algeria and Constantine in November 2017 did not count. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has questioned the international match calendar, saying that there were too many meaningless games and that such a structure was unsustainable for the health of players and the global game. The ambitious plans of football's global governing body for a World Cup every 2 years have come in for fierce criticism from various stakeholders, including UEFA, clubs, players, and fan groups. And that's a wrap on Sports News.
And the main news again, the PDP governors' meeting has ended. The governors agree to work with its candidate in the forthcoming Anambra State governorship election in November. They also await the National Executive Council meeting tomorrow to take further decisions. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Stay safe.